And we have level 2. Holy crud. This is where all the serious stuff is. So let's start taking this stuff out. That is some weighty stuff. Got some extra wires down there. Holy cow. Look at this. Look at this ridiculousness. This is insane. Hey everybody, I hope you're having an awesome day. I have been looking at starter kits for this year's Kit of the Year Awards. And to be honest, most of them have not even been worth filming. But then this came across my desk and I cannot even fit it in the shot. Feast your eyes on this bad boy. This is 16 pounds worth of starter kit called the Goliath Automation and Robotics Colossus kit, and they spent $70.35 to ship it here so that you guys could check it out. So there's way too much here to do a full review in this video, so in this one we're going to unbox it, and in an upcoming video I'm going to do a complete review of the kit. So let's take a look at what's inside. Okay, so we've got some boxes here, which I think are primarily packing material. And then we've got this. Okay, so let's take a look inside. We have a paper here saying that if there's any issues with the kit, let them know and they will replace it immediately, help us resolve those issues immediately. I saw a review on Amazon where somebody said they did have a missing part or something like that and that they were super responsive. They've also said that they want to know what we don't like about the kit. And I've read that in several places that they really want both positive and negative feedback. And I should say that they sent this kit free of charge. I spent some time talking to them about some of the things they do overseas, and I talked to them about the things I do overseas, and I'm sure most of these components will wind up somewhere overseas because I donate all the starter kits that I get for these things to different projects. So there is a thumb drive with the code, and they also have a Dropbox that you can check out for all their code and guides and things like that, and some basic information about getting started. So let's take a look. Let's think. The best way to do this, let's start taking these little things out and we'll look at them a component at a time. Oh my gosh, there's an unbelievable amount of stuff in this kit. And I decided that you guys wouldn't want to watch me open up a million Ziploc bags and foil bags and things like that. So we're going to break this down into parts. And so we are starting with the boards themselves, the primary boards. And it does come with this card here that says that they guarantee this forever. The warranty period is forever, and they promise to get back with you in less than 24 hours if you have any issues. So I appreciate that. So the first board we're going to look at is this little FTDI. These are used to program things like ESP01 modules and things that don't have built-in USB converters. This one is good for 3.3 volts and 5 volts. And it uses a micro, now let me try that again, it uses a mini USB jack. Next up, we have the Arduino Nano. This is a V3, and it is your kind of your prototypical smaller Arduino board. This one has the headers soldered on it, which is really nice. And these are really good for once you've built your project and you want to stick it in a smaller place. These work out pretty well. And this is also a mini USB. This is the Uno, and essentially these two things are the same board. I think this has a little bit less storage, but these are essentially the same boards. And this is the granddaddy of the Arduinos. And if you are watching this channel, you know what an Arduino Uno is. I do like that this is one of them that has the dual pin header option, so you can solder male headers on here, and it did come with those headers as well. My favorite Arduino board of them all is the Mega, and it takes all the goodness of the Arduino Uno and also adds these extra pins and these extra things at the end. And it also has more memory. So where that really comes in handy is when I'm doing bigger projects, like let's say I'm using an Ethernet shield or something, and I need some of the really big Arduino libraries, like the pub sub library for MQTT. This actually has more memory, and so it's a lot easier to have big code with an Ethernet shield and things like that on a Mega. So these are more than just more pins. They're also more memory. Next up, we have one that looks very similar to the Uno, and this is the WeMOS D1, or at least a WeMOS D1 clone. And what this is an ESP8266 in an Arduino Uno form factor, or pretty much an Arduino Uno form factor. The deal with these, they are 3.3 volts, so you have to be careful when you try to put some kind of shield or something like that on there. These do not accept 5 volt logic, but these have built-in Wi-Fi, and they run about 10 times faster than your typical Arduino board. They have more memory. This one also uses a micro USB interface, but these are very cool boards. Now, my use case is general with these is there's another board called the D1 Mini, and I use basically this one that has the pin headers already on it for all my prototyping. I hook my sensors up, and then usually when I go to deploy a project, I put it on one of the smaller boards. So this one I tend to use more for prototyping. Another form factor here, we have a standard ESP8266. This one's also known as the Node MCU, again with pre-soldered header pins, and that's actually really uncommon for an ESP8266 to have the headers already soldered on there, but this is basically a shrunk down version of this board right here. And then we have the ESP32. This is amazing. Like, what, you never see all these things in one starter kit. This is the ESP32, which is twice as fast as the ESP8266. Also has built-in Wi-Fi, has built-in Bluetooth, more GPIO. So everything that's good about this board, there's just more of it with this board. It has built-in touch sensors, a built-in temperature sensor, all kinds of really cool things built on these ESP32 boards, and they call this one a Node MCU. Also, it is an ESP32S V1.1. So these boards are awesome. They're fast. They're reliable. I use them all the time. Great board. This one down here is the ESP8266. I think it's called a 12E module, maybe. It's also known as the ESP01 module, and it is a little tiny ESP8266 with a couple of pins and also this header, this little adapter thing here to make it easier to program and to use it with the FTDI that I have over here. And the idea for these boards is that they are generally used for adding Wi-Fi to an Uno or a Mega or a Nano. There are some projects where people use these by themselves, but the most useful or the most common use for these is when you have them connected to another Arduino. So we've come out of the gate pretty strong. We've got a nice selection of boards, anything from little boards to big boards, from the tiniest Nano and ESP01s to the ones that have the built-in Bluetooth and all that kind of stuff. So this is a very cool collection of boards to get started with. In terms of all the little doodads that come with the kit, you've got a lot to choose from. We've got these breadboards over here. We'll check this out. This is a, I believe they're, I always forget, I think they're 800 point breadboards. And there's 2 of those along with 2 of the 400 point breadboards. And while we're looking at breadboards, there's also this little power adapter that allows you to add power to your breadboard. You can do 3.3 volts or 5 volts, and you can just press this on there. And then you can take this power supply that also comes with it to power your breadboard and power your projects. So very cool to get 4 of them. When I first started doing this, my kit came with 1 breadboard, and I set up my first project. And then when I went to do my second, I had to tear it apart because I didn't have another breadboard. So it's cool to start you off with 4 of them. There's also a nice collection of jumper wires for your breadboarding needs. We've got this set, which this is my favorite type. these only come in male to male, but they have this little molded end on them, and I found that these wires here bend before they break, and so they're a lot more durable, and they just seem to make good connections and seem to be really reliable wires. It looks like there's probably about 50 or 60 of them included in the kit. There's also some little tinned wires that I'm guessing are for some of the robotic projects in red and black. We have 60 of these DuPont connectors that are pre-connected, and they come in male, female, and male. So you have all the options for your prototyping needs. Also one of these little breadboard wiring kits that are kind of nice for keeping your wires nice and tucked down to the breadboard, so you can make really neat prototypes. We've got the USB cables. There's a mini USB, which is a little harder to come by for the, let's see, that would be for like the FTDI and things like that. And then we've got a couple of standard USB cables that come with the Arduino boards. There is, I'm not going to rip these open, but there's these things of discrete components that contain some LEDs, some potentiometers, some buttons, some little clicky buttons, some little button caps, round caps, square caps, different color LEDs. I don't see any RGB LEDs in this particular bag. There might be some in here. I don't see any in there either. But you've got your standard colors, your red and yellow and white and green and all that kind of stuff. So some bags of some components to get you started. And finally, we have a thumb drive that also contains all of their example code in addition to what is available on the Dropbox for GAR. So that is the stuff to get you prototyping. I can't say it enough how blown away I am at how many different things are in this kit. We've got some screens and displays. I would have liked to have seen an OLED screen, but there's a pretty good variety. This is a little 8x8 LED matrix, and these are pretty common for in starter kits. If you watch Gadget Reboot's channel, he has a little display where these line around his desk, and he has a message scrolling around them and stuff like that. So these are really cool to kind of give you an idea of how those matrix work with these, they're called Max 2719 drivers on them and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different form factors of this matrix, and they gave you this one to get you started. Another kind of rite of passage for makers is are these little 16 by 2, they're called 1602 screens, and the idea is that you get 16 characters across 2 rows, and they're really good for little displays and things like that. What I really appreciate this one is that, as you see up here, there's a lot of different pins, and a lot of starter kits will come with this as a raw LCD, but what they've decided to do is to add the board so that you can get away with only using 4 pins, hooking this up over I2C. And so that is, that's very cool. Makes it easier to prototype with. There's a little potentiometer on the back, to display the brightness or to adjust the brightness. Continuing on that same trend is an Arduino Shield with that same 1602 module, but in addition they have an external potentiometer, and then they've got these buttons here where you've got a select, left, down, up, right, reset button, and there's some of the pins are accessible here. And these things make really good displays for menus. There's a lot of libraries out there for making little menus that can be controlled with these up and down buttons. They're really good for thermostat projects and things like that. This is just, I use these shields all the time, and it's just so nice to be able to just plug it in, the buttons are hooked up and all that. So this is made to just pop right on top of a regular Arduino Uno or Mega, and I use these things all the time. So I saw the YouTuber Simple Electronics use this the other day, and I've never owned one of these. This is a 20 by 4 little display, where this is 16 by 2. Here you get 20 characters long, and you get 4 rows of text as opposed to 16 and 2. And they've also done the same thing where they've added the little board on the back so you can hook this up with just 4 wires. I've never played with one of these, and I'm really looking forward to that. And last but not least, I have one of these, but it's pretty cool, so I'm going to show you how this works. This is one of those little USB power meters. So let me find a battery pack. I decided to use my little Ryobi radio because it's not going to turn off if I'm not drawing enough current. So right now we plug this in, got a little display. Let me turn it so you guys can see it. And you can see that we are drawing, we have 5 volts and we're at, 0.01 amps. So I'm going to plug a USB cable in here and hook up an Arduino with a blink sketch on it. And you'll see that our amperage goes up. And eventually it'll scroll over. We're still drawing 5.2 volts. And so a neat little thing to find out how much current your Arduinos are using, how much current your projects are using. Make sure that you're not doing too much before you hook up to an Arduino. Make sure your power supply can handle it. See what kind of current your phone chargers and things like that are drawing. So a very cool little charger doctor. In addition to the other components, we also have a couple of bags of resistors. Looks like there's a few hundred resistors in some common values here. There's some extra pin headers. Oh, cool. I've never used one of these. These are the 4-segment or 4-digit 7-segment, maybe 8-segment displays. So this looks like it can be made as a clock, for a multimeter, something like that. Also a single version of that. Here's some RGB LEDs. There's a couple RGB LEDs to play with. You've got these pin headers in here. Have this 9-volt adapter, so when you take your Arduino, you can power it with USB, or you can power it with the little barrel jack and attach a 9-volt battery to it, should you choose to do so. We've got a couple little chips here. One of them is a shift register, and the other one is a motor driver. There's some little tactile buttons, or little on-off switches, and some other panel mount on-off switches right here. Looks like a passive buzzer. A couple of photocells, a diode. This looks like a thermistor for temperature. Transistor. Yeah, bunch of little discrete components. So I love Arduino shields. I just showed you this LCD shield, and they mount on top of the Arduino like little backpacks, and I love it because they get all the wiring out of the way and they make your project look a lot cleaner. They're also faster for prototyping. Like sometimes if I need to hook up 6 buttons, rather than going and grabbing a bunch of buttons and a bunch of wires and all that stuff, I'll just grab this shield and I've got my 6 buttons hooked up. And, no need to run a bunch of wires and things like that. So in terms of shields, we have this LCD shield. We also have this one. Let's see what this is. This is a servo and stepper driver. So this thing will drive, it says 4 DC motors, 2 steppers, and 2 servos in one shield, and you'll see that we do have some of those things here. So this handles the power distribution and the controls for steppers and servos and motors and things like that. Very cool. We've got this, this is awesome. I've never seen this one before. This is called the Nokla 5110 Joystick Shield V1A by Funduino, and this has got a little joystick thing here. Has 4 bigger buttons, an F and an E button down here. I'm not sure what they are. Mounts with the same shield form factor. You can flip it between 3.3 volts and 5, and even the joystick has got a little button there. There's some pins broken out over here, so I'm sure like Bluetooth and stuff like that, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But there's all kinds of fun stuff you can do with this, and this would give you a nice little clean thing for making. You've got a hookup here for an NRF 2401, and just all kinds of really cool stuff on the shield. Never seen this, never used it before. Pretty cool it's included. Let's grab this one. This is an Arduino sensor shield, and the idea with these sensor shields is that when you're hooking up something like an Arduino, let me pull this apart. So you've got all these digital pins over here, and most of the time when you hook up to them, you also need power and or ground. So what these shields do is for every one of those digital pins, they give you the signal pin plus a power and ground. And there's some additional features. There's an APC 220. I'm not exactly sure what that is. There's room for a Bluetooth module. The the O1, which I think is another communication module, LCD parallel, LCD serial, all this stuff. Arduino Sensor Shield 5.0 allows you to not have to sit there and connect to a breadboard, because each of the individual sensor pins has its own power and ground. So lots of fun stuff there. This is the same type of shield, but it's for the Arduino Nano. Let me find that. So basically, you can, I think I saw one of these in Pile of Stuff video recently, but same thing. So now my pin D7 has a signal, a voltage, and a ground, and it's the same for all the rest of the pins, in addition to some other things broken out over here, some serial connections broken out. Also the ability to power the Nano from the 9-volt barrel jack, not something you can usually do, so adds a lot of functionality, really good for prototyping on one of these Nano V3s. So this is pretty cool. I just sold my CNC, but I've never built a CNC from scratch. So this has the stepper and spindle controls to build your own CNC machine with an Arduino. And if I'm understanding correctly, I believe that these you can upload the Gerbil code and they work like pretty much any other CNC. There's rooms for abort buttons and hold buttons and all that kind of stuff. Basically, this is the brain of an Arduino controlled CNC machine. So just like this one and this one, there is another sensor shield over here for the Mega with the bigger form factor. And in addition to the things that are built in on this one, this has, let's see here, something here for connecting to an SD card, something for connecting to Bluetooth, another APC 220, another one of those NRF connectors and all that kind of stuff. So lots of inputs and outputs on this shield. So very cool. So I did look it up real quick. The APC 220 is one of those long range things similar to the NRF 24 series. Claims 1,000 meter line of sight communications. So lots of cool stuff going on here. Another prototyping shield we have here is this Mega one with room for breadboarding and some kind of surface mount, some kind of SMD component availability right there. I'm not exactly sure what that is, with a little mini breadboard. So very cool. Looks like something that Scott Beasley would build. So very, very cool little prototyping board. I've had these for the Uno, but I've never seen one for the Mega. So awesome. This, if there was a Hall of Fame for Arduino shields, this is one of my favorites. This is the 5100, I think W5100 Ethernet shield, and these things are fantastic. They're crazy reliable. I use these all the time, and so it's got this little SD card slot on it. You can use it for data logging and things like that, but these are primarily for connecting your projects to Ethernet. Nothing wrong with Wi-Fi, but Ethernet is just super reliable in general, and so when I care about something working all the time and don't want any interference, I use Ethernet. One of the things I've talked about is that I use this a lot with the Mega. Grab that over here. I use this a lot with the Mega because it has the extra memory to deal with the overhead of things like the pub sub client for MQTT and stuff like that. So to me, like, this and a Mega are such a great pairing. And I've never seen this before. This is an Arduino camera, and I see on here it says 3.3 volts. So I don't know if it's primarily designed to be used with an ESP32 and ESP8266, but this is an Arduino camera. I've played with a Pi camera, played with an ESP32 cam, never played with this at all. So I'm super stoked to check this bad boy out. You thought we were almost done, didn't you? We are not even close to almost done. Let's take a look at some of the motors and robotic stuff. First thing we have are a bunch of bolts and plates and screws and all that kind of stuff for the robot that you can build with this kit. I've not tried to build the robot. I'm not sure that I actually will build the robot. I may give it away as a gift. But you have all the hardware that comes with the typical Arduino robot kits. You've got these 4 wheels here that press onto the motors. Speaking of motors, this is 4-wheel drive. So this could either be 2 robots, or you could build, you know, 4-wheel drive robot, depending on how you want to do it. But there's 4 of these motors. You've got a couple of pieces of different acrylic. Let's look at this one here. Let's see, it looks like you've got a dark piece and a light piece. I have a video on how to get this stuff off this thing. 37 people now, 38 people have watched it. But yeah, so we've got some black acrylic, we've got some clear acrylic as far as robot bodies are concerned. We have these H-bridges. I've got a second one over here. These little H-bridge thing, you use one of these to control every 2 motors, and they deal with the power and heat dissipation of controlling those robot motors. We've got, let's see what else we've got. We've got a couple of DC motors, little spinny DC motors, higher speed, lower torque motors. We have these steppers that I used in my Rig Dough Fortune video that was sponsored by Simple Electronics. And yep, we've got 2 of the little stepper controllers. So you get the stepper, you get the stepper controller, and you can get to stepping and making your own project. We have these servos that can be used on that servo shield or controlled directly from an Arduino, and a couple little doodads that come with all these things. These are 9G, so they're SG90 plastic gear servos, and come with all the little things for attaching wires and cables and stuff like that. Now we've got these things. So these are NEMA 17 stepper motors. So these are quality stepper motors, and they're very heavy, and they're used a lot in CNC applications and things like that. There's also 2 of these stepper motor drivers for these type of boards, as well as 2 limit switches. So you can see that when you're at the end of your range, it will bump into this and will disable the stepper so that you don't allow the machine to destroy itself. So yeah, lots of cool CNC and robot-y type components in this Colossus kit. In terms of communication, we have some of these NRF24 devices. These are longer range. I believe they're also supposed to be 1,000 meters, although that's kind of debatable. These are some long range devices with some external antennas. We also have shorter range versions of the same thing, as well as some little shields to put the things on so to make them easier to deal with, which is very, very cool. So one of my other favorite devices is these HC05s, or as people call them on the other side of the pond, HC05s, and they are very simple, no configuration required modules that will take the serial out on your Arduino and will send it over Bluetooth to a Bluetooth device or something like that. There's also been some good work by Evan Kale and Brian Locke, and they've made ways to turn these little things into HID devices and use them to emulate keyboards and to connect keyboards and things like that. So these are very, very cool modules and super simple to use. Another one in my module Hall of Fame are these 433 megahertz transceivers and or receivers and transmitters, and I use them all the time for controlling little devices and making arcade games. I've got some videos that use these things, but they are highly recommended. You can buy cheap key fob remotes, you can buy cheap wall switches and things like that, and use this to simulate them, or use this to receive output from those cheap remotes and stuff like that. So awesome. We have your standard 4x4 keypad matrix. Let's see what we've got up here. This is very cool. This is a self-contained unit. It is a voice recorder and playback device. It's got a little microphone here, a little speaker here, and I believe that it is actually controllable with the Arduino. So you could record something and use this to play it back and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's got a little bit of memory built in, and never used one of these. Looking forward to giving it a shot. Another thing that gives a lot of wow factor to your projects are these little RFID tags and RFID cards. This is the 13.56, if I remember correctly, megahertz version that's super common with the Arduino starter kits, and it's really cool. You push the button, it tells you if the key is registered, and you can unlock doors and do all kinds of fun stuff with them. So they do add a lot of wow factor to your projects. Another standard sensor that comes in most of the kits is this little PIR sensor, basically a little motion detector, for lack of a better term, that you can use for your projects. Turn on a light when you walk in the room, that kind of thing. I've got a standard single relay module here. I don't know if that's an optocoupler. I don't think so. But this is a single relay module. I do like that it has the LEDs on it, used for turning. You can use your Arduino to turn up to 12 amps at 125 volts or 10 amps at 250 volts on and off with your Arduino. Another sensor I've never played with is this one. This is a pulse detector. So you put your finger on and it will read your pulse and report it to the Arduino. Very cool. Never seen that before. Have this rain sensor with its little control board here. A lot of times people use these and put them under a sink and will tell if there's a leak under there. You can put it outside, find out if it's raining. I also use them to detect if they've been shot with a water gun. Basically, water hits it and shorts these two things together. And so very cool for water gun games and things like that. Another joystick module like the one that we saw on that shield. Same little clicky button, all that kind of stuff. So just the same thing in an individual module. Speaking of something that we've seen on the shields, this is a single SD card, micro SD card slot for things like data logging and stuff like that. We've got one on the Ethernet shield, but this is a standalone version of it. So now that I recognize what this is, I'm going to grab both of them. These are both Hall effect sensors, and they are essentially used to detect a magnetic pulse. So if you've ever seen one of those speedometers on a bike where you put a little magnet on the wheel and it reads every single time it goes around and then counts the revolutions and does some math, that's how this works. I also used it on my wheel O-rigged that I built to tell where the magnet was at on the back of the wheel. So little Hall effect sensors. Have temperature sensor here, DHT11. This is the standard one that you're going to find in pretty much all the starter kits. We have this GY521, which is a gyroscope. There's another one I think called a GY68 or something like that you would think is a gyroscope, but it's actually a barometric pressure. I'm pretty sure this is the gyroscope module. Can tell you your pitch and yaw and all that kind of stuff. We have a couple more limit switches like the ones that we saw with the stepper motors. When something runs into this, it will trigger the switch. Have a laser module. I use the laser in some of my laser shooting games. I also have those laser sensors to detect when they've been shot. So very cool there. We have a real-time clock that will allow you to add a real-time clock to your Arduino projects. You can also use this on a Raspberry Pi so that it can keep time when the device is turned off and all that kind of stuff. Very cool. A couple months ago, I saw YouTuber Pile of Stuff playing with one of these moisture sensors, or soil moisture sensors, and there's some different tips you can look at online to make these last longer because they don't tend to last super long. But you dunk this in some soil, and it tells you how damp your soil is. Again, with a little controller board. We've got two vibration sensors. This one you can actually hear. This one you can't. I believe this is a high sensitivity model, and this is a more moderate sensitivity model. I mentioned before in one of the escape rooms that we had a thing where if somebody picked up a teddy bear, that they had to shake the bear for the entire rest of the escape room, or it would start adding points to their score. So all kinds of weird things you can do with that, theft deterrent and stuff. I've got a microphone. So standard microphone, people use them. I used one in my Stream Deck thing where I screamed the word Audacity into it and it loaded up Audacity. We have an infrared receiver and sender, and an infrared remote, perfect for, again, I have a video called Universal Receiver, and the idea is that it has one of these in it and one of the 433 megahertz things, and you can point any remote or key fob at it and it will give you the code so that you can duplicate it. So that's a super handy thing to have. This is a flame sensor. I use this also in the Stream Deck, where I lit the lighter and it took you right to my page to subscribe. So hey, subscribe. Yeah, so a little flame sensor. And let's see what else we've got. We've got, this is a rotary encoder. So a lot of times these are used for menus and things like that, where you need to know what step you're on, or you need to be able to turn a volume up or down, or again, scroll through menus and things like that. These two are obstacle avoidance sensors for things like robots. We have the ubiquitous SR04. This is the little ultrasonic sensor that shoots out some ultrasonic waves and sees how long it takes to get that sound back up to 200 centimeters and tells you how far the object is away. They work so-so, but speaking of working so-so, these don't even really work so-so. These are MQ gas sensors, and I believe this one's an alcohol sensor, and if I had to take a guess, this is probably carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. And the idea of these sensors is that, you know, they're toys. They're fun to play around with, and it will spike up the readings, apparently, if they read the right kind of gas or alcohol. They're kind of fun to mess around with, I guess. These are the Hall effect sensors. So that, I believe, is everything. So there you have it. That is the unbelievable Goliath Automation and Robotics Colossus starter kit. Huge thank you to them for sending this out so that we could take a look at it, and we will make sure that all these parts find good homes somewhere around the world. And yeah, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for a full review of the kit where we get a little bit more in depth into what's provided and how good it is. So thanks for watching. Have a great day.